Session with Dr. Farid Holakouee.
Good evening. Welcome to In Session. I'm your host, Dr. Farid Holakouee, and I'll be with you for the next hour here on Radio Hamra. So this is the last show I'll be doing in 2025. Hard to believe. We'll be going into 2026. Very, very important year for me, 2025. I'll definitely never forget it. It's the year my son, Keon, was born. So I'd always have that very incredibly special significance for me, but also excited to go into the second year that he'll be with us, 2026, and see what that holds. But to conclude this year, I thought I've been talking lately about change, setting goals, and those themes because we can make a change at any time, but there is this feeling of a new start that we get with everything that's new. A new month, new week, even new day gives us the sense of something fresh. Let me start tomorrow. Let me start on Monday. Let me start next month or, at the new year. And of course, sometimes even the way I said that, it's our excuse to allow ourselves to do something we want to do longer. I'll quit drinking starting Monday or smoking or whatever it is because we don't want to stop and we want to continue the instant gratification and the comfort that we have in whatever it is that we're doing and give ourselves a sense of, well, I am going to stop soon so I can almost enjoy it now more guilt-free because it's not like I'm just doing it in a bad way. I'm doing it as the last times I'm going to do it and then stop altogether. But nonetheless, there is this feeling of a fresh start, which can be good. It can allow us to feel a little bit more of a clean slate feeling. It is really something that we create because you could start at any time, and of course different calendars will give you different times of year or when you have that new start. I always joke that as Iranians we get two chances at a New Year's resolution. We get it January 1st, and then like 2.5 months later we could try another one for Nowruz to see if we can make it stick that time. And I've covered over the years, one of the things I'd always do is looking at goals and types of goals. And that's one important thing of how you set goals. I really think it is very important because you could set yourself up for failure or for disappointment. I also think one of the biggest issues with New Year's resolutions is people tend to make them very black or white. Like I'm not going to smoke in 2026, or I'm going to do this. And then what happens is, as there's research looking at how quickly people tend to stop or give up on those New Year's resolutions. The feeling is if you smoked one cigarette, well, there goes the whole thing. And like you just give up for the rest of the year, where the spirit of what you were trying to do is to smoke less. Your goal might be to not smoke at all, but the goal or the intention or the value there is to smoke less, which is what you'd be better to focus on rather than just this black or white rule that once it's broken, it's all bets are off, everything is, done. But what I want to talk about today, something I mentioned this theme earlier, but I'm going to go in a different direction tonight, is this idea of new year, new me, or that we're going to become this totally different person, or that we can become this totally different person, and to look at where this might be coming from and how we get ourselves into trouble. So to begin, one thing I want to make as a point that'll come up throughout the show, which sounds pretty straightforward or almost doesn't need to be said, but it does need to be said, and I'll explain that. And that is that let me put it this way, all humans are human. There are no people who are superhuman or above what it is to be human in the world ever, and will there be. We're all human. There's nothing more than that. Now, what that means can mean a lot of things. And as I said, this could sound very straightforward, and maybe people think, well, why would I ever believe otherwise, or who would believe otherwise, or I'm not crazy to think otherwise. But we will find ourselves believing things and wanting to believe that there are people out there who are just somehow superhuman and above what everyone else does. And one, we can either follow those people, learn from those people, admire those people. But I think it also comes from this place that there's this hope that we are somehow superhuman or have this potential to be superhuman. And by believing that it's out there, it makes us think maybe I could be that too. And I think this is actually one of the themes or dynamics that plays out in people who follow gurus. There's a sense that, of course, I'm following this superior being who has some kind of infinite or innate wisdom and knowledge and has the right way of living and all those things that gives us comfort and certainty, and an escape from the anxiety of the unknown of life. So there's definitely that part, but there's also at times this part that it makes us believe because we believe there might be some of that in ourselves that we want to bring out, that we might be able to someday, tap into. So even when I say that tapping into, often that's used with the word potential. And yes, I think we all have more potential, or we could say that no human being has lived 100% to their potential. I mean, like literally just did everything right. So we all could have done better. We've all made mistakes. We've all made bad decisions, and many of them, not just some bad decisions. We make many of them if you look at small decisions that we make every single day. So this idea that we have untapped potential is totally true. And I 100% believe that, looking at your past and also what you can do going forward. And it's important to actually learn from what you've done and haven't done in your past to do better in the future. But the thing is, people take this to then think, yeah, this untapped potential means I actually could be like this superhero person if I went to my full potential. And that's the part where we're making a connection that I'm arguing tonight doesn't exist. That yes, you can meet your more of your potential. I don't think anyone will be perfect, in meeting their potential, but it doesn't mean you're going to become superhuman or something that's so different from everyone else. That's the fiction that we tell ourselves, and that's the fiction that people sell us. That are self-help world types of people and gurus and those types. They are looking for a way to make us believe this idea that, look, I'm superhuman and you can be too if you follow me. Now, they wouldn't say it in those words, but they kind of give you that idea. And, sometimes they'll say things like, oh, I don't believe in these limitations that people have. I don't think, you could do more in 24 hours than you think, or you can have 3 days in one day. It's kind of a meme moment that a self-help person has said before. These types of ideas that it taps into this magical thinking, childlike place that we all have within us, and some of us are more stuck in it than others. And yeah, there is something so exceptional that we haven't tapped into. And if we could just find it, we could become these superhuman individuals, and we can live this kind of life and be this kind of person that is so different and superior from other people. So we're all wanting that we have that desire for that. And this is where human imagination and just the capacity to imagine, to think about possible things, gets us into trouble. Overall, it's a very good quality that we have. I have talked before about human intelligence, and that you can still say there's an argument of whether or not it's been adaptive for us because of the ways that we've also hurt ourselves and hurt our environment. But that's its own argument, and you can go listen to those shows where I've discussed that. But this side of our human imagination, or capacity to think about possible futures and to prepare for those futures, and to create even inventions and science technology because of that, is really incredible. But of course, it also allows for us to have things like anxiety or worries, where you can worry about future things as well that have not happened. There's a lot of these quotes where it's like, 99.999% of the things you worry about never happen, because we think about lots of different things that can go wrong. Oh, this can happen. I mean, now as a new parent, I experience that every day. Oh, that thing is there. He could hit his head here, or this could happen, or that could happen. You think about all these things that could go wrong, and thankfully, almost none of them do. But your mind, as a predictive machine, and in this sense, trying to protect you or protect the loved one, is trying to think of all the different scenarios, and often think about all the different things that can go wrong to try to make sure those things don't happen. So our ability to think about things that can happen and predict and project into the future is a huge strength in so many ways, but it also allows for us to do lots of negative things, such as worry too much, and get ourselves into trouble in different kinds of ways. And this is another thing that we can do is we can imagine this kind of superhuman self for ourselves and for others that isn't really true and actually I think is harmful to us and harmful for us. Here might be important to note Alfred Adler's theories about inferiority and superiority, and having an that's where the term inferiority complex comes from. And I think there's actually a lot of value in this concept that just being born as babies and born little and then being kids and then everything you see and everyone you see around you, we have this feeling of inferiority and parents have to help us deal with this and so that we don't hold on to it or have an unhealthy reaction to that because you are smaller. It is really a true feeling that you have there being inferior, at least as far as size, strength, intelligence, all those kinds of things. But we can hold on to this and we can actually have this fear of being inferior. And because of that, we might react to it in a variety of ways. We don't want to be inferior, insignificant, weak, all of those, very powerless types of feelings. So we might tap into this place that actually, no, I am superior. And so a lot of what we see people doing is try to find ways that we are actually superior. We likely wouldn't say it in that way because we know it doesn't sound good to say, I think I'm superior. Or I'm trying to, I could show you ways that make me superior to other people or most other people. But we actually will recognize that we all do this in different ways. Even things like racism is related to this feeling of your race or your ethnicity or your group being better than other groups, superior to other groups. Even within ethnicities, we see this. For example, in the Iranian community, we have a lot of this sense of, based on where you are from, even in Iran or what city, that might be a status thing that you might look down on other people and say, oh, we're better than the people from here because we are from here, or our family is this, or our family members had these professions, so we were better than other people. And this also, of course, relates to social status and the implications of social status, the opportunities, the marriage possibilities, the business opportunities, different, advantages and privileges that you get with status. So it has concrete, tangible value to people's lives and existence, but it also has a psychological value of giving you this feeling that you are better than others. So I can't be inferior if I am superior. And that's also why we like to find someone to look down on. Maybe I can't say I'm better than everyone, but I can find someone that is worse than me or some group that is worse than me. And that, unfortunately, I say that because it creates lots of negative consequences, but that unfortunately will feel good. It's like, okay, we're not the highest on the totem pole, but look, we can look down at these people. Oh, look at how low they are and how bad they are. And this gives us a sense of comfort. As I said, unfortunately, because it can mean that we treat people bad and lead to racism and all sorts of things that follow from that. But there's clearly the sense that we want to find someone who we are superior to, someone who is inferior to us. So this drive for superiority, or this drive away from inferiority, is something that we almost all carry with us at some level. This fear that we might be inferior, maybe it's a belief or even a strong conviction, but some type of belief of this possibility at least. And because of that, this desire to go away from that feeling. And so this is one of those ways that we do that, this idea that I can see my potential is, so much more than what I've shown. So I can be better than everyone else. And this is also partially an artifact of this experience we all have of being in our own experience and not knowing other people's experiences. So you see someone else and they do what they do and they okay, look at that's who they are. But then we look at ourselves and no, I know I wanted to do this, or I could do this, or some days I do this, even if I don't do it every day. What if I did it every day? So because we're in our own heads and have our own experience being so close to us, we think that we are so different from everyone else when everyone else is doing those same things. They can imagine doing better and doing more and being more consistent and, achieving goals, setting plans that they don't do, setting goals that they don't achieve, having good weeks, bad weeks, all those kinds of things. We just don't really know their internal experience. We just assume what they are externally is all that they are, but we think, oh no, no, I'm much more than what people see because we're in our own heads. You think about all those things. So we have this tendency to think about ourselves and want for ourselves this possibility of being superhuman. That if we can get it just right, I know all the things I have to do. If I can just get it just right, I can be superhuman, and that's a possibility. That's a potential for me. And so, because of that, we can imagine that there are other people who are superhuman. And as I'll talk about in the next segment, there is reasons why we might want there to be those people out there. One, yes, because it reaffirms this possibility that we can be that. But there are a lot of comforts and things that we get from believing that there are these superhuman people out there that we can find and then learn from, or they could become our teachers or our gurus, and we're looking for that. So I'll get into that after the break. Let's go to some commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back. So in the first segment, I was talking about our desire to want to believe in superior people, superior humans, and first looking at how we have this thought or desire about ourselves that maybe I can be superior because I know my potential, because I see all the things I know I should do that I don't do, or the mistakes I make. And because of that, I think I can be, superior in some way. And how this also can lead to us wanting to see other people or believe that there's other people that are these superior humans out there. And we see this throughout history. Charismatic leaders and people that show up and be using their gift of speaking and words and really manipulation, get other people to think that they are somehow superior to others. I mean, we had this in history before, even of kings being from God, or this nobility and other ways that people were literally born to be better than other people. So we still have that in some ways, in some cultures, but we also have this idea of the superior human that shows up in a variety of ways. There is the individual who was just born different, so from birth was different from everyone else, or has this superior type of knowledge or being. There's often people who have another version of his epiphany. So they were a normal human being that had something that could have been almost a religious thing, could have been a moment of insight, reaching nirvana, meditating, something that was this moment that changed them. So that they were human, they were just like everyone else, but all of a sudden with this moment, they became something different. And now they had some kind of gift, some kind of wisdom, some kind of knowledge that they're now sharing with others that is this superior, because they're superior and they have this, special knowledge or wisdom that they are sharing. There's also the learned version, someone who has studied so much that now they are superior. So they've read and studied, and now they are superior to other people. They've achieved this type of status and stature, and now they are superior. And there are, I'm sure, others, but those are a few that come to mind of these types of paths that allow for someone to go from being regular to superior. Or in the first one, maybe they were born superior, but somehow making them different from everyone else. And so the way this plays out is these superior people that are out there, they have this knowledge, this wisdom, these gifts that are the insights into how to live the good life, the right life. And they know what to do, what not to do, how to live the good life. And also, often they might even know things about the afterlife or what's going to happen to you afterwards as well. And so here, a big part I was mentioning, before, some of it is that we want there to be superior people out there because it can confirm that we have this possibility that we think is this possibility or this potential for us. to be superior ourselves. But another big reason why we want there to be these people out there is that being a human is a very anxiety provoking status or situation to be in. As I was mentioning before, because of our gift, but also a curse of imagination and of thinking about different, even past, but different futures and outcomes and things that might be on our way, we can think of uh, lots of different things, which is good, but also we could think about things like our death or our loved one's death, or think about things like what happens after our death and how do I know what's going to happen and if it's good, bad, scary, not scary, if I can control it in some way by what I do in this life. Um, how do I know I'm living life the right way? I hear different things, I see different things, it's not clear. And all of these things bring up a lot of uncertainty, which also is a type of, we can also say it's an existential type of crisis or anxiety, but we have a lot of uncertainty being human. And a lot of what we do is to try to escape from that uncertainty because it is such a unsettling feeling. It makes us feel anxious, worried, scared. Even you can be paralyzed. I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going to happen to me. And these things can be very debilitating and really terrifying to experience. So the human experience is a difficult one, and it involves a lot of uncertainty if we're going to be real with ourselves and real with what life is. There's a lot of uncertainty. And so, because this doesn't feel good, we are all thirsty and yearning for certainty, someone who can show up or some way that we can get away from this uncertain feeling and the anxiety it gives us. And so we see this happening throughout history, and right now you'll see it, so many cases of it. You can go online and find hundreds of gurus and self-help type of people who, they might not say it in these words. They won't say, I have the knowledge that is, somehow the most important knowledge in the world, or, they might not say they are somehow superior. They might not use that word, but they basically will imply that I know the truth. I am certain about these things. And they say with such conviction and confidence that it can make you feel like, okay, they know. And that is very comforting. If someone says they know the path, and if you follow them and everything they say to do and how to do it, you will live a good life, have a good outcome. You will get control of things. So essentially, they're selling you certainty and control, the sense that you can be certain that this is the right way. And life feels so unclear, out of control. Things can happen to you, things can happen to your loved ones. This sense that you can have control over your life and what happens to you and what happens to the people around you. And so, understandably, it's a great product when we're talking about selling it, something that everyone would love to believe, to have this type of hope, this comfort, this certainty that comes with it. And so, there are people who are going to basically, anything that people are willing to buy, someone's ready to sell it. And so this is something that people are very much wanting to buy in an unconscious way. They won't say, I'm looking for someone to tell me they have the answers and to follow them. But we are drawn to this feeling of certainty because it's comfortable. It's like you're cold and you're just naturally drawn to the heat. You feel a fire, you start getting closer to it. To take that analogy further, unfortunately, what we don't realize is you get closer to it and then you end up burning, which is what happens in these scenarios. But that draw is there to go towards that warmth, which is this escape from that cold, anxious feeling that we feel as these naked apes living in the wilderness. So we want that feeling of calm and certainty that we can get. And so we see it happening constantly, this symbiosis. The charismatic leader who wants the attention, love, fame, wealth, everything that comes with it, and this feeling of being told they're superior and made to feel this way. And people who are looking for someone to follow so that they can escape this fear and the anxiety that they have of living life as it is without this sense that they have the answers. And so the guru or the person who is selling this, again, might not say I'm never wrong. They might even say I'm wrong. Sometimes nobody's perfect, to try to show you a sense of humility and also a sense of wisdom that they think in that way. But really, how they will operate is if they have all these answers with absolute certainty. and that they'll have certainty about things that you can't have certainty about. So if someone says, I know what happens to you after you die, it could be intriguing and interesting and it'll get a lot of attention, and that's why people will say it. But how can someone know that? Now they'll give you some, I went there, or I have, they have like their stories and will want to believe it, but how could they know what happens to us after we die? But if someone says that and they say it with conviction and certainty, and they're eloquent and charismatic, and they have a good story of how they know these things and all that, people will want to believe it, and they'll get lots of believers. They'll say, okay, this person knows. And especially if it's something comforting, I know that it's going to be beautiful and glorious and these beautiful things. And they might even say, and I know how to make it that way for you. I mean, something that religion does. If you follow this path, then you will end up in this glorious experience after you die. Well, understandably, people will want that to be true. It's similar to how we can't know if this is true, but it's very comforting thing that after we die, we will see our loved ones who have died. We say that, or even say, oh, grandma died. Well, at least now she's with grandpa, right? And it's very comforting. And I'm not saying it's not true, but definitely we can't say it is true either. We don't know, but I can understand just if we look at the different options, which one is more comforting, which one is more, feeling good for us. Of course, it's the one where grandma is seeing grandpa right now, and when I die, I'll get to see grandma and grandpa and everyone else too. I totally get that, and I don't know what's true. I hope that's the truth, because that'd be great. But as I said, I could understand psychologically that that would be the one that we would want to be true. So similarly, we want there to be these people out there. It's not everyone, and we have to find the right person who has this. They are superior in this way, that they have this knowledge and understanding, and all the uncertainty goes out the window. Now that I found the right thing to follow, I have to just follow them to the death. Literally, we see this happening, like Jonestown and other things where people have followed their gurus and, their enlightened ones to their own deaths. But if I find that person, I can just follow them blindly and feel comfort in knowing. I mean, the knowing is definitely with a lot of quotes around it, that I am okay. I'm living life the right way. And this is another thing that understandably feels very comforting. I found someone who has all the answers, who's never wrong, who knows the right way to live life, and they're saying it in these very certain ways, very clear ways, all that. And I'm good. I don't have to worry anymore. And really, I don't have to worry as long as I hold on to this illusion. I make sure I don't break this, which is why if someone does, have a guru or, someone they follow in this way, they usually are very defensive of someone saying something bad about them. Now, it's because of their love of the guru and because they, respect the person so much, and that could be some element of it. But another element of it is they're protecting themselves, because if what you're saying about their guru is true, that they're a charlatan or they're not that smart, or, oh, this thing they're saying is wrong, that would shatter their whole this whole image they have and this whole illusion they have that they are living in safety. They feel like they have this invincibility cloak around their home, protecting them, and that no one can come do anything to them. And you're telling them that there's nothing there. This is just an illusion. You're telling yourself that something is protecting you. Anyone could come into your house if they just walk in. But we feel so comforted by it that we want to believe, and we'll fight tooth and nail to make sure we prove. Really, we say it's like proving it to the person we're talking to, but it's to ourselves that no, this is the truth. This person is the one. You just maybe don't get it. And sometimes even that you don't get it part people like, as much as we want the person to be good, and so many people will follow them. There is the sense that, oh, I know the truth. Not everyone is as enlightened as me to find this enlightened one. I was someone who, in that way, was almost chosen to do it, or I've chosen the right path myself. That actually is something people like. So some people might be okay with that. You might attack who their guru is, or might not believe in them, but they think, yeah, you just don't get it. If you knew this person, or if you got close to them the way I have, or got close to their teachings the way I have, you would see. Or if you had the insight or the wisdom yourself, or were intelligent enough, you'd recognize that this is the true answer and the one you're supposed to follow. And so once you find that person, it's very, very comforting, because you don't have to think for yourself anymore, which is also comforting thing, but that an illusion and a comfort that we have to fight against. It's nice to think I don't have to think about anything anymore, but that's not how life works. We are always still responsible to think for ourselves. Doesn't mean we can't seek guidance and learn, um, even consult with friends, family, loved ones, professionals. Of course, you should do all of that, but no one can do all the thinking for you, and no one can make all the decisions for you. It just is not possible, does not exist. And so we have to live with that uncertainty too, that I have to do it myself. And I don't know if I'm doing it right all the time, but all I can do is do my best. And yes, it would be comforting to think there's someone out there who can make all the decisions for me and do all the thinking for me, but it doesn't exist. No one can do that. And we have to accept that. So we would like to believe that there are these superior people out there who have these secret answers and we can just follow them to our death and live in peace because of that. But it's not out there. So every human is human. Someone comes up to you and shows up, and even if they don't explicitly say they're superior, but it seems like they're presenting themselves in that way, you might, if you're buying into it, feel a comfort in believing that to be true. But I would hope you take a step back and recognize, yes, it's comforting to think someone has all the answers, and I no longer have to think I'm living in uncertainty, but every human is just a human, nothing more than that. Let's go into our last commercial break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. So, continuing on this theme of no one out there is more than human, there are just humans out there, which, as I said, sounds straightforward, but we are often fooled by people who present themselves as superior, and we have this desire to be superior ourselves. And so believing that they might be out there also gives us some hope in this belief that we have, or maybe belief in this hope that we have, that we are somehow superior to, that maybe we can become these superhumans. And now this doesn't mean we can't achieve a lot. I said this on the last few shows when I'm talking about change and who you can become. I'm not here to be a pessimist and say you can't, when I talk about that potential, it doesn't mean there's not a lot of potential that we can realistically achieve and attain. We can't achieve perfection. We can't have absolute certainty, whether we think we come up with it ourselves or we find someone who has that. But we can make a lot of real progress and real change in a positive direction. I don't think I would be a psychologist if I didn't think that were true, that people can change, that people can make improvements on themselves that are very, very deep and very, very meaningful in their lives. The thing is that what people often get wrong when it comes to this change part is that they want and look for things that are very fast when it comes to change. We're all looking for a quick fix, which is understandable. Obviously, if you can do something in 1 week rather than 10 years, you'd want to do it in 1 week if it's really possible. The problem is that most change that happens does take a long time. It doesn't happen in a week. And actually, these quote unquote superior humans that I'm talking about, this kind of guru type of character, often will sell you quick fixes. They obviously want to use the word quick fix, but they'll say, there's like biohacks and neurohacks, and they've found ways, cutting edge new technologies, and they might use fancy words like about neuroscience or brain chemistry or whatever, my brain plasticity or different things that just make it seem more legitimate than it is. But they will present to you some way of saying that they have another thing they have, along with absolute certainty and truth, is they have the method and the means to allow you to change almost instantly and to make deep and lasting change that people might tell you will take you a long time, but actually can be done almost in an instant in these kind of breakthroughs that you hear about. And one thing about breakthroughs, because even this is something that does happen in therapy, you might hear breakthroughs. Psychologists, I think, you don't use those terms often, but you hear it used a lot in psychology type of speak. This breakthrough moment. And they do happen in therapy for sure. But I think the problem is most people think that one, almost all the changes, these big breakthrough moments. And that two, once you have some kind of breakthrough, some type of insight or realization, everything just magically changes after that. So, the sense that once you have the insight, everything changes. It seems understandable that you'd have that. Okay, if I realize this is why I do this because my mom and dad, blah, 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 blah. It would make it feel like, okay, now I won't do that anymore. The problem is that when we've learned a behavior, we've repeated a behavior, and it's become habit and deeply ingrained within us, changing it is hard, even if we realize the reasoning behind it. I mean, let's think of it another way. Think of destructive behaviors you might do, some kind of addiction, drinking, smoking, those kinds of things. You even know that it's bad for you, but you can't stop yourself. So, yeah, we can say you might not know the reasons why, unconscious you do certain things, but you have a very clear sense that this is bad for me, but you can't stop yourself from doing that thing that is bad for you. And I don't mean this even in a self-sabotaging way. That can happen, but all of us will have a hard time doing something that might be harmful for us long term, but feels good to us in the moment. So, as much as there are insights that can be very meaningful, very deep, that happen in therapy, it's a big part of it. But it's very important to recognize that insight doesn't mean change, or insight doesn't equal change in and of itself. Insight can be very helpful to creating change for sure. And really, without awareness, you can't change something. So you need to have that awareness, that understanding. But it's important to note that just the awareness itself doesn't mean, oh, now I've changed because I understand what's happening there. But often what you'll see in this kind of self-help guru type of mindset is this feeling that things can change really fast, and using our imagination and also the magical thinking part of our imagination, it can seem to make sense. Some coaches, okay, you do this thing and you don't like that you do it right. Yeah. And they kind of, talk you through, well, what do you think about this? And then, okay, can't you see that, this feeling that you don't have to do that anymore? And, they give you this euphoric high feeling using, different types of techniques to try to get you there. And in that moment, it feels like, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm a different person. I'm not going to ever do that again because I understand myself, or I'm tapping into this other part of me, or I've undone the trauma or the hurt or whatever it might be. And it could feel very real in that moment. So, if you see videos of people, in seminars and things, and they have these moments of insight and breakthroughs, and they say, oh, I'm never going to do this again. If you're watching that, you're like, oh, well, either the person's acting like, it's not real, or it looks like they're going to make this change forever. But what is almost always going to happen is in that moment, they're not acting. They really do feel like, wow, I feel this, like, why would I do that anymore? I'm going to be different, or I'm going to take that chance, or I'm going to do whatever it is, and be a different person starting today. They do believe it and they feel that. But what will happen is that high will wear off as they go back into their normal life and regular life. And for almost all those people, they will go back to doing those same things because that awareness and that high feeling and that excited, motivated experience they were having doesn't become solidified by just one moment. It'll take time for that to happen. They can make all those changes they're feeling in that moment, but to think it's just going to happen in that one instant is really just selling you. It's like, someone giving you, you have back pain, and then you go to them, oh, I'm never going to feel good again in the back. And they give you all these pain and injections and even things that make you feel really good and high. And now they say, how does your back feel? Like, oh my God, my back feels amazing. I'm never going to feel back pain again. I'm going to go do everything I wanted to do. But those medications start to wear off and the pain comes back and you're back where you started from. You haven't made those changes. And that's kind of what's happening here. They're selling you a high that feels really good and feels real in that moment. Just like if you get painkillers, you don't feel the pain anymore. You really think, oh, there's no pain. But it's not a lasting thing. It's a fleeting type of thing. And so to make changes, and so, as I was saying, you might be thinking about this for the new year. Most people do. It's interesting how we tend to reflect a bit on, because of a sense of time passing, our lives passing, a fresh start. I can do different. I can be different. And you could do that any time. It doesn't have to be for the new year, but I wouldn't discourage anyone from trying to really use this as a time to create change for themselves or work towards change. But it's important to keep in mind that real meaningful change almost always is going to be very slow. it's not something that's going to happen in an instant. And it's not something that you've just changed and now you've changed forever, easily. So even, that person who gets motivated by someone, let's say not even in like a self-help kind of way, but in a smaller way. We all have had that moment of motivation. Yeah, I'm going to do this. I could run through a brick wall right now. I'm so pumped up. I'm going to do this. There's nothing to stop me. And then something stops us, or, something gets in the way, or we get in our own way, as they say. And so it doesn't mean we didn't mean it when we said it. We did feel it, but to sustain that and to keep going, it's not something that just you get motivated and now you're perfectly motivated. It's a lot bigger than that and deeper than that. So we can make those kinds of changes, but we shouldn't assume that we've made that change. And also that, okay, now that I don't feel that high anymore, that means I don't want to do it or I can't do it. No, that high was not going to be sustainable anyway. You might not feel it, but I'm saying if you do, don't think that that's what's going to get you to the finish line. That might get you started, that might pump you up, but that's not going to get you there. It's going to be a much slower burn that gets you to that more meaningful, lasting change. And so change isn't so exciting. Change, or I should say, it doesn't look so exciting. It is exciting to actually make the change, but on the surface might not look very exciting, or it might be very slow, or you don't even notice it a lot of times when you make progress and you make changes. But you can look back over time and look at yourself 5 years ago or 5 years from now and say, wow, I've made a lot of change. I wouldn't say you're a totally different person, unrecognizable. That's unlikely, but you can make really, really big, meaningful changes. And here's the important part: you will change in the next 5 years, maybe smaller ways, for some people, way bigger ways. The thing is, in what ways and in what direction do you want those changes to be? We all are creating and reinforcing habits, sometimes new, sometimes the same, sometimes worse, sometimes better, habits and routines in our lives, in our characters, and just every aspect of ourselves. And so day to day, it's very small changes, but over time, it could be huge. Just like, imagine a big ship that's going. It might be slowly moving, but if it changes direction slowly over time, it can end up in completely different ocean, different part of the world, because of those very small, at times imperceptible changes that it does. And so our lives are like that too. You make a step in the right direction and keep making steps in the right direction. Each day it'll be an unnoticeable difference, but you add that up over months and years, and it could be huge. And so we have to be conscious of what we're doing, because we will be changing. The only question is how fast, how much, and also in what direction, and what do you want that to look like. So as I mentioned, I do believe in change, absolutely. Not only do I believe in change, I think change is the only constant, as they say. We're always changing, even if it's in small ways. So change is always happening. What we want to try to do is be conscious of the direction we push that change in. It's not going to be so huge and fast and ultimate and absolute. That doesn't happen. But small changes that lead to very, very big, important things definitely do happen and will happen in your life if you make that happen. So as you're going into the new year, if you're having this sense of, oh, in 2026, new year, new me, I'm going to be this totally different person. You're not, you're going to go to sleep. Maybe you go to sleep already. It's 2026. If you stay up obviously past midnight, like most people do, but you'll go to sleep and wake up the next day and it's still going to be that same you, especially from that night before. But if you think about December 31st, 2026, you can make a lot of changes if you consistently work towards them. And as I was saying before, just again, this note on when you're making resolutions, it's good. Make goals. Think about what's important for you and work towards those goals. But I think you have to be careful not to make resolutions that are very black or white, because that usually means you're going to give up on them and then forget about them. I'm going to do this every day. I'm going to never do this even once. And once you miss a day, or you break that resolution, you just throw it away. But remember, why am I doing this? I want to be healthier, or I want to work on my financial life, or my career, or my relationship, whatever it is. Think about what the values are that are important to you. You can create goals and create behaviors that you're trying to do to work towards those things, but don't give up on those types of goals or those values, even if you have hiccups or setbacks in those day-to-day, weekly, monthly types of goals and plans that you set for yourself. So I don't like the kind of resolution of I'm not going to smoke in 2026, or I'm not going to drink, or I'm not going to this, or I'm going to do this every day. Those kinds of things, which is usually how people create their resolutions. It's very much these black and white types of things. Those almost always are going to fail. And then sadly, once you slip once, you throw the whole thing away. I'm trying to be healthier. Oh, I did this thing. Okay, now I'm just going to live as unhealthy as I did before. Well, what's the point of that? Why would we do that? So, and this also goes this idea of you're not going to be this totally new person. The thought is, oh, I'm going to be this new person, so I'm going to never do this again. Or I'm always going to do this, and then we don't do it. Like, oh, I guess I'm not this new person. You're not going to wake up as this new person. You can slowly build a different person, a stronger person, a better person for yourself. But it's going to be small steps every day that get you there. So try to make your path in the right direction and to connect those steps in the right direction. There will definitely be setbacks and days where you don't take a step, or you take a step in the wrong direction. That's okay. Just overall, you want to work towards that. And as you set your New Year's goals or resolutions, don't make them black or white or absolute. Try to make them more value driven, something that you're going to focus on the whole year. I want to be healthier. Okay, these are the things I'm doing, and I'm not going to stop thinking about that, ever, but, till the end of the year. I'm not going to give up once I break this kind of plan I had. Set those goals and those values for yourself, the values more importantly than the goals, and move in those directions. And yes, when I'm doing this show at the end of next year, you could be a very different person, make a lot of improvements. You won't be a different person completely. You won't be a superior person, but you can work towards progress in ways that will be meaningful for you in slow, important ways. And I wish that for everyone listening, and I hope they'll do whatever they can to give that to themselves. So here's to 2026. A big thank you to Farid in the studio as always. You've been listening to In Session with Dr. Farid Holakouee. Zan Zendegi Azadi.